This video is all about what typically happens right before someone discovers their calling in life, their true soul's purpose. Many people hear this and think it's some kind of silly thing that people just say, but the ones who this video is for have a deep sense that there's something there. There's something there that they've yet to discover within themselves about their life trajectory that they feel is going to help them with their pursuit of really being happy and fulfilled and whole. It's this purpose, having a sense of purpose. And it's kind of interesting because right before, I would say, your purpose reveals itself, there's a few things that happen that can make you feel as if your purpose is further away than ever before. In fact, when I went through this, when I went through these various things, prior to that, I was wanting to find my purpose. I had this as a goal of mine. But when I went through these few things, I became so discouraged that I gave up on the notion of a purpose. I thought, okay, this is just some silly thing I'm chasing. It's not real. And then bam, it happened. And the first thing that happens is your life starts to lose meaning. You become what I call uncomfortably numb. From that song, Pink Floyd, awesome song. This is not a comfortable feeling. It's an awareness sets in that, this is not going to do it for me. This job, the house, the life situation, whatever it is you've been pursuing or have already achieved, you realize can affect you only in a very superficial way. And as nice as it is to have a nice home and a cool career, you realize that there's still something missing. There's still this yearning within yourself to experience more depth. It's like Jim Morrison would call it from the Doors. He would say, everybody wants something sacred. And you might feel that as well. And you won't know how to get it. You won't know where to find it because everywhere you've looked, you've kind of come up short. I went through this. I've had, what you'll find in this video is there are like multiple renditions of your purpose. But the most recent time I went through this was a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And I had achieved all the things my mind set out and then some. I had a nice career, nice home, nice family, all the things. I had no reason to not be happy. But I had the same exact emptiness. And during that time, I kept having dreams of having a little baby. I would just, in my dream, we would just have had a baby, or I would see a baby and I would hold the baby in my dream. And as I would hold this baby, I would, at least in that dream, for those few precious moments, feel what I was looking for, feel the love, this like sacred love energy. And my mistake was that I had to have a baby to get that. That was just my brain's closest thing to what my soul was yearning for. So you might have some variation like that. Maybe you're not thinking of having a baby. This obviously was a unique thing for me, but just to kind of give you an idea of like the best way I could describe what it is you're looking for. Like if you've seen a baby, it's like the purest thing, the presence they have, the glow behind their eyes. There is something very sacred and innocent and pure and real and like loving about a baby. But you might not want a baby, but you might want something that gives you that same feeling. And that's good. It's kind of frustrating initially because you're like, okay, I know what I want. At least I kind of know what I want. There's a vibe I'm going for. But I don't know where to get it. But that's the beginning of your search. In order to find your purpose, you have to be open to it. And you have to initially become aware of where you're not going to find it. And if you're watching this video this far and you relate to what I've been saying, then you're already there. As you get closer to finding your tangible, action steps for this so-called purpose, you'll find that the things in your life that conflict with your ability to carry that out, you'll start running into like just nonstop resistance with it. Just one thing after the other, more and more and more problems, less and less and less enjoyment, more stress. And the problems can get so bizarre when that situation that is kind of in the way of your purpose revealing itself lingers too long. This happened to me when I owned a personal training gym. The first thing that happened to me was what I said prior. you just so you know, years ago, I was a successful personal trainer and I had my own gym, and it was like the culmination of about a decade of my career. And I finally had this nice gym and it was working out well. And then this began to happen right before I found my next purpose. Anyways, the first thing was that I became very just bored with the gym, and it was very confusing to me because it was something I worked so hard for, and it just didn't make sense. It felt unfair that I worked so hard for something and I finally got it, and all of a sudden it's so like unfulfilling. But then beyond that, what started to happen related to point number two here is all these weird problems started happening. For example, another gym with much better marketing and was much more dialed in, they literally moved in like right across the street from me. So that was a huge competitor, literally like within, I could see them every day I was in my gym. So that was, I was like, oh man, that's a pretty cruel twist of fate. And then what happened, as I kind of expected, is a lot of the clients started kind of dropping off, going elsewhere. Then I started having conflicts with the trainers and the manager, and we wouldn't see eye to eye. And then even beyond that, beyond like the typical business struggles, what would happen like every few days for reasons we still never knew, we'd come into the gym like any other day, you know, me and the trainers, and we'd see the entire gym just flooded with water. There was this drain that would get backed up because of the neighbors or something, we don't know, and it would just flood the entire gym. And we'd have to drag one by one these very heavy mats to begin with, but when they're wet, they're even heavier. We'd drag them out, and we'd have to, like, you know, put them in the sun, hoping it was a nice day. We were in Michigan, so it was not always nice. We'd have to mop the floor. It was like we found ourselves thinking like, man, this is all of a sudden a lot heavier, a lot harder, a lot more grueling than ever before, and it's not even working. So you might have that type of situation unfolding with some maybe key area of your life. And it can be concerning if it is a career or a house or some kind of pillar of your life. And a lot of times this will happen and you still won't know what the next step is. You still won't have any clarity about like, okay, well, if I let this go, at least I have this new thing that's blossoming and it's exciting and it'll soon replace this. You don't know any of that yet. All you know is you have a bunch of problems. Around this same time, you might start getting glimmers of what you might call like a dream. You're probably not comfortable calling it a purpose yet, because this glimmer, this like these like ideas that might come to you in some way that have the quality of resonance. They light you up, they feel exciting, but they also feel so far-fetched oftentimes that in your mind, it's like, oh, this is just like a fantasy. Of course, I wish I could just leave the rat race and be a charter fisherman in Australia. Like, yeah, that'd be great. Like, whatever it is, whatever your version of that is, something that it's like, wow, there's an unmistakable compatibility here with this idea, this notion. But given my life circumstance and just the practicalities and just how my mind sees everything, it seems almost painful to consider because it just feels so far-fetched. I'd rather just put it out of my mind because it's not something I can realistically do, right? Wrong. I'm going through this right now. It's why I'm making this video, actually. You know, I've been on YouTube for about 10 years now. And I still love YouTube, and I'm not going anywhere, just so you all know. But I've been going through all this in my own way. And other things I've been doing have kind of been breaking down, not working. And there's this new idea that's been coming through for my wife and I, and it's a perfect example. And what that is to start our own breathwork certification program. I've been running breathwork for the last 4 or 5 years. I became certified, and over the years, I've started to kind of make it my own, and my wife as well. She's also certified. And we become just so obsessed with learning everything you could possibly imagine about breath work, the history of it. We're studying all the different modalities, and what we feel is we're onto something very revolutionary, something that is not really out there yet, that we feel inspired to create, and we're doing it. We're doing it. But it took us a long time to warm up to that idea because it felt so like this big thing, like it's like starting over. It's like you might feel like that, like I'm too old to start over, to start a new career. I'm living proof you're not. I've had a lot of different careers over the years that kind of came and went just like this. And when there's a passion, even though you don't know the how yet, if you just follow it, I've learned if you just follow it and add energy to it, it's like, it almost seems to me there is some type of support from the cosmos, God, the universe. I don't know. But what might seem impossible, if you give it a shot, you might find is not impossible. This next one is perhaps the most difficult one, at least for me, someone who's likes to have a control, likes to have a handle over everything. I'm like, my son Sebastian is exactly like me. He's so funny because even when he was extremely young and we drop him off to like kindergarten, he could tell if we took a different route. Because in his mind, we would pass this street and go here and go here and go here, and then we'd get to school. And then at 3 o'clock, mom and dad would come get me, and we'd come home, we'd have lunch, and his whole day was like mapped out in his brain. And if anything went like not according to plan, it would like stress him out. And I would see that and I would kind of laugh to myself, but it's like a mirror. I'm the same way. But anyway, this is not about me. What I'm trying to say here is there's a lot of uncertainty. My son Bash would go nuts if this purpose reveal process was unfolding, because you just don't have certainty. You know, you can get the sense and you kind of know and can see that like everything is changing. You don't know where you're going to end up. You don't know how things are going to go. Things might also not look that good when a bunch of those pillars start breaking down and all you have, if you're lucky, is that far-fetched glimmer of this vague sense of purpose with no tangible concrete footing whatsoever. And it's very difficult for like the mind and the ego to come to terms with, because what's happening is change. And it's a change and a movement into the unknown, and the mind doesn't know what to do with itself. There's no reference point. There's no real reference experience to kind of find security in. And this is a very challenging place to be when your life is in just this major sort of transition, and it feels kind of out of your control. You realize when I was resisting the closing down of that gym I talked about, I remember feeling very like humbled and small. Like I knew I could still try my best and it still might not work. It kind of feels that way. It feels like an uphill battle nonstop, you know? But anyways, it's part of it. And the cool thing about that is it kind of forces you to look for other sources of security. And you might be doing that already. You might be realizing this situation might be kicking up some of your wounds, some of your trauma, some of your unresolved issues from like your deep past. You might start looking at them and seeing how there's a correlation to this circumstance here to the past. And you might start drawing these connections. You also might just find yourself seeking other forms of security. You know, a lot of people, they turn to religion, they turn to like their own, cultivating their own relationship with God, whatever that is. And you might start looking within for a deeper sense of like safety almost. This happened to me a long time ago when I was a drug addict and I was getting clean. And I remember I was in such a bad spot in my life for obvious reasons. I was like newly clean. I had to move away from my house, like 1,000 miles away to Florida, and live in this crazy halfway house with all these hardcore knucklehead type, you know, ex-con guy wackadoos. And I was like this 18-year-old little preppy kid from the suburbs. And I was just I felt so lost and felt so vulnerable. And when I got clean, they talk about like developing a connection with God and things like that. And I did my own way. And I would literally get on my knees every night and I'd like put my elbows on the bed and I would like close my eyes. And I would just like in my mind kind of like psychically reach out to this idea of God. And I felt like I was onto something. It felt like it kind of worked. I remember thinking like, you know what? I don't know if this experience I'm having is real or not, but I do feel better. It does feel nice to have faith in something bigger than myself. Now, over the years, of course, my spirituality and things like that have sort of taken a lot of different changes, but nonetheless, I find that you might find that you're doing some variation of that. looking within yourself, looking beyond the limitations of your mind to predict and foresee and control. You might be realizing that there are many limitations. You just can't do it. And that's like a bummer in a way. It's stressful, but it creates this adaptation, this evolution of, oh, this isn't working. And because we're powerful creatures, like the human species is extremely adaptable, very, very powerful. And give it a challenge. It's not too long before something else, they find a way of doing it. And you might find yourself finding a little bit more peace in the unknown, in the uncertainty, by looking to the divine. And before I go, I want to just share with you a few tips. I've gone through this same exact fundamental process multiple times now. None of them were easy, to be honest. But what I've learned is this. One is to like trust the process. I know it's something you hear a lot of time. It's, oh, trust the process. Give me something tangible, Vic. But you can trust the brilliance of life. You know, I like to read, I don't know, where's my book? It's The Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And Meditations, if you don't know, is this book that this Roman emperor wrote back in like 120 AD, like a very long time ago, 2,000 or more years ago, or roughly. And they were like notes to self, like note to self. And he never intended this to be published, but it's so full of wisdom. And he was a very higher conscious person, especially for back then, even by today's standards, borderline enlightened level of consciousness, in my opinion anyways. And in a lot of his meditations, they were kind of like, again, like notes to self. And he would always remind himself how small he was. He'd say, break everything down into its most fundamental essence. He'd say, strip it bare of the thoughts, the logic, and really understand, like, what is the nature of the self? What is the nature of life? What is the nature of that tree over there? And when you really start to look that deeply at yourself, and especially at yourself in relation to life and the cosmos, you realize how insignificant you are, which sounds kind of depressing, but it's true. Like, for who knows how long, existence has been functioning perfectly. You know, here you are as an example. You are this like very complex, sophisticated, self-aware creature. How do you think that happened? You think you did all that? You think you're controlling your heartbeat and your respiration and the blood flowing through your veins right now? You think you're sustaining life with controlling? It's like, no, there is this like beyond comprehension level of intelligence that's running the whole freaking thing. And that includes you. You're not separate from that. That's the illusion. Is like, well, that's all happening there. Nature runs beautifully, but it's like we forget that we're part of that nature. You're one of the more like higher level manifestations of nature if you think about it, compared to all the other animals and plants. Like we're like, you know, one of like the top species basically. You're definitely a part of that nature, and so am I. So where along the line do we forget that we could trust that? What do you think this purpose of yours really is? What do you think this is all about? This is nature working through you, putting you where it wants you. And it doesn't make mistakes. It's never off. There's always a reason and a rhyme to these unfoldments. And it's just so sophisticated, our little mortal minds can't even begin to comprehend it. So, but remember, like, a lot of times the strain of the transition of finding your purpose, it just comes from the futile attempt to control the process. But wouldn't you rather not? Like if it was me and my limited understanding of how to, you know, have a good life and like God or the universe, I'm going to put my money on God or the universe. I would think they would do better. So why not let go and trust that? You can find peace right in this moment, choosing to trust that you're not in control, you never have been in control, and you don't need to be in control. So real quick, as I was editing the video, I felt the need to share this last thing. And this last thing I want to share with you is something that oftentimes happens like almost immediately before you really finally know for sure what your purpose is, and you have the clarity that may seem like it's been eluding you for a long time. And that is, you come to a breaking point. You come to a period of just discouragement, confusion, frustration, sometimes even like hopelessness and despair, where you feel so incredibly just lost. It can feel like the universe has abandoned you. It can feel like you're just in some type of pressure cooker and life is beyond your ability to manage. And this doesn't mean like everything in your life is going to go bad or anything. It's just like an internal crisis, sometimes accompanied by life challenges, but it's very much embellished and amplified and exaggerated by the mind and the resistance. And it's just like this final like rebirthing type of experience that you go through as a personality ego structure right before moving on to the next step of your journey in life, where the divine finally reveals itself to you. What comes to mind is an analogy that my buddy, a meditation teacher, said he would notice with his students. He said that a lot of people who have been meditating for a little while, they get to this sort of sticking point where they notice that their meditation practice begins to worsen, where they're putting in the hours or whatever, they're doing their daily ritual, but their meditation quality is getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. They're sitting there and they're counting mantras or whatever for a half hour. And at the end of that half hour, even with all that experience, are coming out as if nothing had happened. And he said what happens is, unfortunately, a lot of people, they give up at that point. He said, but the ones who just stay with it just a little bit longer, oftentimes all at once will suddenly drop into a completely uncharted depth of their consciousness. And that is exactly what I have experienced multiple times when it comes to my life purpose. That exact phenomenon of getting to a point where I this close to giving up. And if you feel like you're there right now, then I encourage you with all of my heart and soul to keep going. You might be a lot closer than you think. And no, I'm not just saying that to make you feel better. That's literally how it has worked in my life multiple times. And I beg you that you at least give it a shot. And it's okay if you feel cut off. You can feel completely cut off from not only your divine purpose, but anything good and holy. You might find that you're going into very like cynical and dark places in your mind. You might feel just like you can't keep going like this. You can't go another day like this. But you can. And if you do, you will see, my friend. Your purpose will finally reveal itself, and it will make all that drama, all that madness worth it. Because when you find whatever it is that lights you up, that makes you feel connected, that makes you feel your true essence manifest in whatever it is you're doing, and you witness the impact it has on other people's lives as well as yours, that thing that's been missing is that. And it'll give meaning to your life no matter what it is, no matter who you are, no matter what stage you are in your life. When you have a purpose, you get to wake up out of bed excited to get after it, knowing that you have something very real that you get to interact with each and every day. Don't give up.